What would you do if your business has been closed for months and you can no longer afford it? Now, that's what happened to this gym owner here in NYC. He is now asking the Gov, what are we supposed to do? Go broke? He has no money left because they're not giving any financial, as you would say, support to any of these people. And on top of that, he spent the last few months trying to convince them that all you got to do is look at the statistics. Statistics show you very clearly that no one gets the strain at these type of gyms. These gyms have no higher levels whatsoever. Yet, for some reason, they won't open them up. This guy named Andrew here will not open it up, of course. And now he's actually taking them, the gym owner, the business owner, is taking him to court. All right? So it makes sense. I mean, you have to do something if you want to stay in business. It's not like they're trying to get rich here. They're simply trying to, open up their business so they can pay their bills and serve their customers, all that kind of stuff, all right? Now, of course, we got a lot of stories to cover in this video. We're going to be covering everything, folks. Got a lot of interesting stuff actually to cover. Some stuff that's been going on that I said would happen is starting to happen. All right, we'll get into it in a minute here. First, I wanted to mention about Kodak. You might have heard of, this photography company, Kodak. They make, actually they make a lot of stuff, honestly. They also make, for cameras and things like that. But apparently, they were trying to get into some new business. They had a $765 million loan coming to them to get into to get into the medical industry, all right? But it was put on hold. Why? Because the CEOs were trying to pay themselves off before they even got the money. They were already paying themselves huge bonuses and giving themselves a bigger salaries. And what was the other thing? They were trying to give themselves some stocks as well. Now they're not going to get the loan, apparently, or at least it's being put on hold. It's just kind of funny. Yeah, the CEOs didn't think about their employees and their customers first. They thought about themselves. Seems to be a rather common thing these days, right? Now, check this out. Chicago. Okay, I mentioned this was going to happen. We're seeing it now. We have Chicago. We have also, what is this, Wisconsin? Yeah, this is Wisconsin. Wisconsin and Chicago. Overnight. 2 men in blue. All right? Marchers basically using these on them. All right? And I said they were going to start doing this. I said this like a few days ago, that they were already planning to do things like this, and now we're starting to see it happen. All right? So it is a thing that's definitely going to be going forward. They're going to be doing more of this. At any rate, it's just amazing to see kind of what's been going on. We know that I was thinking this would probably be September where we start really seeing this stuff happen more. Honestly, I'm hoping none of it happens, but I mean, the way they've been talking and things we've been seeing. Now, there is some good news. There are some new types of marches happening, and these ones are on our side. We're talking about for the men in blue, for those who want to open their businesses, things like that. We're starting to see that happen. Here's one in North Carolina. All right. So that's some good news. We are seeing some of that. Now, we got some big stories about the Prez. I put out a video yesterday on my other channel kind of covering this a little bit about that. He gave out sort of an interesting message when he was at a certain company, okay, about that you may not see me for a while. And he gave some hints with what was behind him. As you can see here, he has some washers behind him. And it mentions a washer. So you're thinking, what does a washer do? You wash your clothes, you wash your laundry, right? What other kind of laundry can we have? All right, or you can take out your laundry. Might mean something else sometimes, you know what I mean? Getting rid of, as you would say, certain things or certain, as you would say, people. All right? Maybe that was the message that was behind him. And actually, that seems to be the case because the very next day, we have this here, folks. Check this out. And this is where he was going. He was going to Ohio. And next thing you know, the very next day, a few different businesses, all right, were being checked into, all right, over this specific exact reason relating to this guy's son. Okay, this guy here, his son, who happened to have a business in another, as you would say, country. Okay, and these businesses that were being looked into over in Ohio happened to be working with the businesses that this man here's son was a part of, all right, where they had a bunch of things going on there. So that was part of it. Okay, that was actually a big part of what was going on, apparently. And actually, we have some other things as well, by the way. That's not it. Okay. So what else do we have here, folks? Apparently, when he left, all right, you can see here in this picture all those who work for him were leaving with him. Okay, let's see if I can see this picture or not here. I'm trying to get to the picture. Oh, it's gone. That's interesting. Well, I only got this small version to show you, folks. As you can see here, there's a number of people on the lawn saying goodbye. All right. Why would they be doing that? That's not something you would usually see happen, right? Unless he's going to go away for a little bit, you know what I mean? So that's what happened. And obviously what he was doing was something that could, you know, be kind of big, and that's why he had to do it that way, folks. Now, he's been trying to get things in place. A lot of people are like, "Oh, nothing's happening, everything's the same." I don't quite agree with that. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's surrounded by people that are not exactly wanting to help him. So he has to, you know, take small steps to get things done. And you know, like Brandon here is saying, are we taking it for granted, you know, considering who could have been in there if he had chose not to go for the prez? If he would have chose not to in 2016, where would we be right now? That'd be a good question to ask. I don't know. I don't think it would be better. Obviously, you know, with the things that are going on, that's because they're not liking where he's going and they want him to go a different direction. You know, the powers that be want to make things happen. And you can see kind of what's been going on. You can see it on, you know, in different cities, right? Look at this. You have in Cali or even states telling even this man is pretty well known. I mean, he's pretty much one of the top guys in his field, all right, as a minister. One of the top guys. And he's having to say, look, I'm going to keep my doors open, even if you tell me not to. All right? And, I mean, this is where it's at. I mean, they're telling people in Cali you can't sing. You can't even stand up and say something. You can't even say something. What? Okay, so it's not open right now, the congregations. But if it was open, you can't even stand up and say something. You can't sing. What are you supposed to do? I mean, what in the world, dude? It's hilarious, you know? Obviously, this isn't because of the strain. Oh, the strain. Give me a break. I mean, there's a lot of things like this. Here we go. This is interesting as well. The same man, by the way, as we were talking about in the beginning of this video about the gym owner, right? Way back in the beginning of this video, I was talking about the gym owner. Where is that at? Here we go, yeah. Same guy, same gov, okay? Check this out. What did he do? Well, that's a good question. What did he do? Well, he strangely sent thousands of people that had the strain to these retirement centers, okay? And then a lot of these, as you would say, older folks ended up getting the strain, and are no longer as a result. Why would he do that? Why did they do that in Michigan? Maybe to get their numbers up. Oh, look how many people are gone from the strain. Like as if they actually manufactured it themselves. They made it happen. This man right here, who doesn't want this gym owner to have his business open, when all the statistics show that the gyms don't cause any more of the strain, they won't allow him to have his gym open. But then he, the same man that won't allow the gyms to be open, is sending thousands of people who have the strain to retirement centers to give it, as you would say, to all the, as you would say, older, right? And then now they're no longer. So they could get their numbers up high. Oh, look how many people are gone from it. See what I mean? Because 50% of those who are gone from it are those type of people. What better way to get your numbers up high than to do something like that? See what I'm getting at? So I find that to be rather interesting. At any rate, so there's that. What else do we got here? Oh, yeah, we got some other interesting things. Power, as you would say, is going out in a lot of locations. Why? Good question. Of course, we were talking about how they want to do this in the future, that they're wanting to do this potentially in October. Okay, maybe November, in that area. Power, as you would say, goes out, and then you can imagine what happens after that, right? You got all these people marching with these things. Not very good, right? And what else? I mean, what else could happen as a result of that? We don't know. There could be a lot of things, but we've heard things about this maybe being what is going to happen. Of course, we don't want this to happen, obviously, but it's curious how they always are checking if this stuff works beforehand. Is that what they're doing right now? We have New Jersey here. Okay, actually there was multiple locations. NY as well. Other places also. I mean, there's a number of places. Oh, it's interesting it was this location. That's kind of strange, right? Of course, this is a calls channel. So, I mean, he was pointing this out. I think he might have something he's pointing out pretty interesting there, folks. To get a better idea of where we may be at if he was not the prez, maybe look at Australia, folks. What's going on in Australia right now? Now, of course, they don't actually have that big of numbers for the strain, but they're saying they're so big. And we gotta keep everything closed. And it's not just that, folks. It's way more than that. They're closing everything. You know those lines between different states and things? They're closing those. There were 500 men in blue that were basically keeping 3 full towers, apartments, completely closed with people, as you would say, inside. As you can see in these pictures here, they wouldn't let them out for weeks on end. All right. It didn't matter if they even wanted to go get out and have some fresh air. They wouldn't even let them out the door to get fresh air, even after 14 days. All right. Now we have some new stuff happening there. All right. Let me see if I can get that pulled up. So now we're talking about their streets essentially being completely empty when there's hardly anybody has the strain there, but the empty streets. And of course, everybody's up in their apartment complexes, their houses, whatever. And of course, the men in blue are making sure you don't go out. Could that be what we would be looking at if someone else got in? All right. I mean, it's really, I heard they were doing this in Spain as well back some months ago. I don't know what's going on there now, but they were doing this in other places as well. All right. This isn't the only place. This is the guy right here. This is in Melbourne, and the stuff he was saying was just unbelievable. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Here's the one. This is what I was talking about. Actually, right here. All she was doing was walking down the sidewalk, folks. That's it. I mean, literally just. So, I mean, you get the idea. So, I mean, that's where it could be going if we didn't have our current, as you would say, prez. I think, honestly, it would be more like Cali over the entire country, you know what I mean? But I'm just glad that at least some places are still open and we have sort of some positive things going on, you know, business-wise and just, you know, everything-wise. I'm kind of wondering what some of you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.
Today I'm going to show you how to make a superfood that'll last a lifetime without refrigeration. And it's so nutritious, you'll never have to stockpile another food. The food's called pemmican, and it was widely in use by the natives of North America and also by the Western explorers who would go for months without contact with civilization. In the 19th century, even British soldiers had an iron ration of 4 ounces of pemmican. Many of these iron rations were found intact and edible as much as 50 years later. So let's just avert our gaze from modern survival thinking for a minute, and let's think about how the guys who explored the West 150 years ago did it. Now that's exactly the kind of stuff I found in this 350-page book called The Lost Ways. It's probably the only survival book I've actually enjoyed reading, and you won't believe the survival things we've lost to history. Now I found the pemmican recipe on page 48, and I decided to give it a go. Natives used whatever was available to them at the time. Bison, elk, moose, deer, but nowadays people just use what they can buy. You just need to remember to select a low-fat red meat, and beef is perfect for this. So you'll need 6 pounds of beef, 2 pounds of rendered beef tallow, and 1/3 cup of strawberries or blueberries. And that's it. Don't include nuts, seeds, vegetable oils, grains, beans, or dairy products of any kind. Now the first step is to dry the meat and blueberries. First you need to slice the meat very thin. You can use a very sharp knife like this one, or you can keep the beef in the freezer a few hours before slicing it. If you don't have a dehydrator, you can set the oven to the lowest possible temperature, around 130 degrees, and put the strips of meat directly on the rack. So now place a tin foil on the right side of the rack and spread the blueberries out to dry with the meat. Place the rack back inside and crack the oven door to prevent moisture buildup. Let this dry for about 15 hours or until it's crispy. 150 years ago, people dried their meat by building a wooden pyramid over a small fire and hanging the meat slices on that. After 15 hours, this is what you should get. Toss it in the food processor until it becomes a powder. Do the same with the blueberries. In the old days, they grind it with a rock to crush it into a powder. Generally, well-dried meat will weigh just slightly less than 1/3 of its raw weight. Therefore, 6 pounds of raw lean meat will yield about 2 pounds of thoroughly dehydrated meat. For our next step, we need to cut the fat into small pieces about a 1/2 inch square. So place the fat in a pot on the stove and heat it up to a temperature between 225 and 250 degrees. Now, you don't gain anything from getting it any hotter than that other than destroying the fatty acids, which we want to do as little as possible. Now for the first 10 minutes you want to keep this on medium-high heat, and you want to stir it about every minute, and this will allow enough of the fat to be liberated to coat the bottom of the pot without burning the bottom of the fat. After about 10 minutes, you'll see a pool of fat forming on the bottom of the pot, which should be merrily boiling away. You can rest a little bit now and stir it maybe only every 5 minutes, just to keep things well mixed. After about 30 minutes, the liquid fat should have risen enough to cover the chunks, and it should look like a rolling boil. So as this liquid rises, you can go ahead and lower the temperature down to about 230. After about an hour, the major boiling action will have stopped and there'll just be small bubbles rising from the fat. About 90% of the cracklings will be a chestnut brown in color. So use a strainer to separate these and set them aside with salt to enjoy as snacks later. They're really, really good. And if you don't like them or don't want to eat them, you can set them aside to cool for dog treats. So good. Oh, yes. Sammy, you want one? Come here. We now have to weigh the amount of ground meat and the amount of rendered animal fat. We have to have the same quantities, so you'll probably have to remove some of the excess fat. Place the remaining fat on the stove. Keep it about 120 degrees. Mix the shredded meat into the melted fat and stir it until it's well blended. Then add the blueberries and mix it again. This is how it should look. The fat should be absorbed or coating the meat fibers. There should be very little or no liquid fat pooling in the bottom of the pot. Now, following the instructions from the Lost Ways, you can store it in Ziploc plastic bags and press flat, removing as much air as possible, and therefore preventing the fat from going rancid. This should keep the pemmican from spoiling for a few years without refrigeration. So let's do that. And here's what I got. Pemmican is the ultimate survival food, no matter if you want to bug out or bug in. 10 pounds of pemmican would supply food for 2 full weeks of camping activities at 3/4 of a pound per day, providing 2,200 calories. In survival mode, the same 10 pounds of pemmican would supply energy for almost a full month. This was just one awesome chapter in the Lost Ways, but you won't believe the survival skills we've lost to history. And that's what this book is all about, saving our forefathers' skills. But I actually realized it's also about saving ourselves from the shallow world that we live in. Click below to find out how you can get your hands on one of the greatest books of this century.